everyone! We are living in a world full of natural resources that we enjoy for food, shelter, power, and energy. We use these resources as a way to sustain our everyday living. But what if I tell you that these resources that we enjoy are depleting? What can each and every one of us do in order to sustain our environment and ecosystems? Don't worry, for the Eradicate is here to help. I am Hannah Tan.
I'm Danica Mijares.
Celestino.
Marian Manalo.
Carmella Cabrera.
I am Franzxel Simara.
Yee Ng and
Jeanne Galang.
Here to provide environmental knowledge for each and everyone's awareness. This is Bloom for the Future, the Flow of Plant Nutrients. In this video, you will learn about flora, nitrogen, and sulfur cycle, the relation of nitrogen and sulfur cycle with flora, anthropogenic effects, invasive species, and epigenetics.
Flora is a term used to describe a group of plants present in a specific area, and it encompasses the whole plant kingdom. Flora and wildlife are critical to human survival. Now, how does our environment manage matter and energy? This is the result of what we call the biogeochemical cycle. Biogeochemical cycles allow us to gain more insight into the transportation of elements across ecosystems, allowing for modification. Starting off with the nitrogen cycle, it is a biochemical cycle that converts inert nitrogen in atmosphere into a condition that may be used by living organisms. The sulfur cycle is another kind of biogeochemical cycle, wherein it allows the sulfur nutrient to be distributed throughout our ecosystem.
Any of the natural paths through which vital components of living matter are cycled is referred to as a biogeochemical cycle. The word biogeochemical refers to the biological, geological, and chemical components of each cycle being taken into account. Biogeochemical cycle transport elements in diverse forms from non-living or abiotic to living or biotic components of the biosphere and back. All of the chemical ingredients that make up living cells must be recycled continuously in order for the living components of a big ecosystem, a lake or a forest to thrive. Each biogeochemical cycle has a reservoir, nutrient pool, a larger, slower moving, usually a biotic portion, and an exchange cycling pool, a smaller, faster moving fraction concerned with the rapid exchange of biotic and abiotic elements of an ecosystem. Gaseous biogeochemical cycles use the air or the oceans as a reservoir by evaporation, while sedimentary biogeochemical cycles use the Earth's crust as a reservoir. Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and water are examples of a gaseous cycles, while iron, calcium, phosphorus, and sulfur, and other earthbound elements are examples of sedimentary cycles.
As time goes on, the world will continue to progress, giving rise to a new industrial revolution. The increasing number of human activities to obtain such minerals heavily influences the sulfur cycle. More hydrogen sulfide gas is released into the atmosphere when significant amounts of fossil fuels, particularly coal, are burned. This causes a substantial shift in atmospheric sulfur balance, which in turn results in acid rain. Physical disruption causes considerable amounts of mineral sulfides to be exposed to ambient oxygen in all of these circumstances. The sulfides are oxidized to sulfate. Due to this, which result in a considerable amount of acidity being produced. Surface water subjected to acid mine drainage could become substantially acidified and have increased toxic metal concentration, causing severe harm to vegetation or plant life. One of the most prevalent cases in affecting the nitrogen cycle is the production and use of nitrogen fertilizers. Nitrogen and fertilizers permeates into soils, favoring the growth of weeds over native plants. Nitrogen from the fertilizers then washes into the streams, resulting in a nutrient overload, an invasive condition known as eutrophication, which causes aquatic weeds to grow unrestrained in freshwater lakes, rivers, and streams.
invasive species are global change drivers that alter biodiversity, threaten native species, wreak havoc to its unique area, devastate the entire ecosystem, disrupting the function of the ecosystem, and drastically tilting the community's scale of balance. Invasive species come in many forms, including microbes, plants. Invasive species thrive by quickly adapting to their new area and reproducing fast because they have no predators in their new location. Then, invaders adapt more than, and it causes ecological facilitation wherein they alter everything until it becomes favorable to them. Human activities can have an impact on the increase of nitrogen and sulfur cycle. The presence of sulfur as a nutrient for various organisms can bring amino acids, proteins, and other biochemicals that plants get because of the soil water. With the presence of human activities, both nitrogen and sulfur cycle effects are being affected. Due to the burning of fossil fuels, nitrogen-based fertilizers and other more activities affect the nitrogen and sulfur cycle. With the increase of nitrogen and sulfur products in the environment, invasive species can be significantly affected. With the lesser amount of nitrogen and sulfur products in the environment they lived in could not produce nitrogen because of the lack of protein in the soil. With that, invasive species die, and they will not reproduce more to the environment.
Epigenetics is a study on how your behavior and environment may influence the way your genes function. Epigenetic changes can affect gene expressions in various ways, which includes DNA methylation, histone modification, and lastly, non-coding RNA. In flora, epigenetic control is a skill that plants have mastered. Flora has evolved in sophisticated ways to adjust to the change in soil nutrient supply, which is crucial for plants' growth and development. For example, exposure to sulfur dioxide caused by the sulfur cycle leads to the changes in the cytosine methylation of the Arabidopsis genome. In Arabidopsis cells, global genome hypermethylation and locus-specific hypomethylation can be thought of as a crucial regulatory mechanism for plants' adaptation in environmental stress. According to Major and Ludwig in the year 2018, prolonged nitrogen deficiency was linked to the massive overall decrease in cytosine methylation in vegetation and was maintained in the cytosine methylation patterns in the next generation. Thus, nitrogen deficiency stress can cause heritable methylation changes in the DNA.
Human survival is dependent on flora cycle and wildlife. The flora produces oxygen which the human and wildlife consumes to breathe. The term biogeochemical refers to the consideration of biological, geological, and chemical components of each cycle. Anthropogenic effects are those that result from human activity rather than those that occur naturally without human intervention. We call invasive species adaptive, endangering, and reproducing, but not all introduced species that are non-native have negative consequences. Epigenetics is the study of how your environment and behavior can affect your genes' function. Plants have achieved epigenetic control, which is capability that flora has mastered.
We believed nature was healing last year, but we were wrong. As climate change continues to disrupt the cycles of growth and the development of flora, fauna, and other species. And this is why we say it's time for us to convince and spread awareness about the flora and the importance of cycles to environmental deniers. Because with this symbolic gesture, we sustain the ecological balance and maintain the beauty of the ecosystem thanks to the plant kingdom, flora.
Leonardo DiCaprio once said, "Our planet's alarm is going off, and it is time to wake up and take action." To our fellow viewers, always remember that the future of the world is in your hands. Eradicate is now signing off.